Hi everybody, welcome to the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. My name is Amanda and I'm the mom behind Raising A to Z, and today we are talking about a question that will forever fill every page on every Facebook forum. Is homeschooling legal and how do we do it legally? So let me start off by saying I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just a general conversation about some of the policies and regulations as they are publicized in various journals and documents from the government. We're just talking about them. If you need legal advice for anything, please consult a lawyer. We will put some links to some homeschooling help groups below, the Ontario Federation for Teaching Parents, as well as the Homeschool Legal Defence Association. We will put links for them below. So if you need real legal advice, please contact them. Don't come to me. That being said, we're going to talk about some of the regulations and rules that we have to follow in Ontario. First question is homeschooling legal? Yes, homeschooling is legal all across Canada, in every province and every territory. But since education is regulated by the province in Canada, each province has its own set of rules and regulations surrounding homeschooling. So you want to look into where you live specifically because each province has very different rules. For example, Quebec has some of the strictest homeschooling rules in the country, and they are right next door to Ontario, who has some of the laxest rules in the country. So you want to make sure that you know what the rules in your province are, because you would hate to get in trouble for breaking the rules. So today we're talking about Ontario, and we're talking about Ontario because that is where we live. We live in Northern Ontario, and we have some really great blessings in the sense that homeschooling here in Ontario we have very few rules. We have a lot of freedom and very few rules. We have no requirements for reports that need to be filled out. We do not have to follow any specific curriculum or guidelines. Our kids do not have to meet certain expectations by certain grades. Essentially, in Ontario, you are free to educate your kids at home as you see fit, so long as you are in fact providing them with an education. That being said, we'll get into some of the actual rules around homeschooling because there are a few in Ontario, but it's one of those things where it's really simple, but it's also a little bit confusing. So let me break this down for you. The Education Act in Ontario is a legally binding act, but it does have some policies. And policies are confusing because they are not a law, so you cannot actually get in trouble for breaking them. It's just highly recommended that you follow them, and if you don't, it could lead to investigations and make your life more difficult than it needs to be. There are a couple different scenarios that you might fall under, and we're going to try to talk about them in very basic, broad, general terms because every family is different. First scenario is if you have a child like we do who has never been to school. So Lexi has never been registered in school. She has never attended a school. We have never even filled out her name on an application considering to send her to school that has ever gotten to the school board's hands. As far as all the school boards in our area know, she does not really exist. In that kind of situation, you don't really have to do anything. You do not have to inform anybody. You don't have to fill out any paperwork if you don't want to. We don't submit any letters of intent or anything like that because she's never been registered. The only reason why we might possibly submit a letter of intent is if we were contacted by a school board and they requested that we submit a letter of intent. Now, we would not be legally required to. They could start an investigation if we did not. But the problem becomes, especially in our area where we have 4 active school boards, it's very difficult for them to determine who has access to our child and where our child will be going to school. So where we live, most people who have their kids home from the very beginning don't actually get requested to submit more information, to submit a letter of intent, because it's really hard to track where these kids will be going to school. Scenario number 2 would be if your child is in a school and you've decided to pull them out and homeschool them. So this is very simple. It's very straightforward. You would fill out a letter of intent. We'll put a link to one below. The Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents has a letter of intent template you can fill out. Some school boards, even like if you say you're homeschooling, they will send you a template to fill out. Very general information, name, age, gender of your child, your home address, boom, you're done. You submit it to your board office, and then you would politely, it's recommended that you would submit a copy as well to the principal of the school that you're pulling them out of. Just kind of as a politeness to give them a heads up, it is recommended by almost everybody. So that's it. You pull them, you submit your letter of intent, and you are done. The school boards may ask for more information. You are not required to give it. You do not have to submit lesson plans. You do not have to tell them what curriculum you're using. You don't even have to tell them why you're homeschooling. In fact, most legal organizations, including Homeschool Legal Defence Association and the Ontario Federation of Teaching Parents, recommend that you don't submit anything more so, because that's basically an investigation and they have to actually, there's a whole different set of rules to go into, because really that's kind of overstepping their bounds as a school board. It's also recommended that you submit a letter to your school board once a year after that to kind of continue, if you continue on, just to let them know that you are still homeschooling. Some people don't. I know a lot of people who don't. It depends on your area. I know down south in Toronto and Hamilton, they're really, like, the school boards are really on top that if you submitted a letter last year and they don't have a record of one this year, they will contact you. Up where we live, we don't, like, you don't hear that very often. It's not something that comes up. But again, you might as well submit it just to cover your butt if you have ever submitted a letter of intent before. Simple, easy, and that's pretty much it. Now, there is one thing that we're going to talk about, is your letter of acknowledgement. So when you submit your letter of intent to a school board, they are supposed to send you back a letter of acknowledgement, basically a letter stating that they have received your letter of intent and that they recognize that you are homeschooling, and it's basically your proof that your kids are not truant and that you are educating them at home. Simple, right? Some people might want to submit a letter of intent even if their kids have never been to school. So for example, if you have a child who is on the spectrum and you've decided that you would like to access certain services, or if you have a child who has a hearing impairment or anything like that, and you want to access some Ontario services, you might be required to have a letter of acknowledgement saying that your child is being educated. Because a lot of these services are actually usually done through the schools and through the school boards. And so they want to make sure that they're not double dipping. So you would need a letter of acknowledgement because you want that letter of acknowledgement to get these funds. There are a couple other instances where you might want to get a letter of acknowledgement on a regular basis. Those would be if you have possibly you've had a CAS case, if you are in a divorce where homeschooling is an issue. There are a couple of situations. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Those would be best if you contact one of those organizations we talked about. If you have a special circumstance, I highly recommend you find an organization that would support you and give you actual specific legal advice for yourself, because you would hate to be in a position where you're under investigation. If you were ever investigated, the best thing to do is have your letter of acknowledgement, and I highly recommend having some kind of record, having a record of what you have done with your kids. We have a planner. I write down kind of a rough outline of what we've done in a day. Yeah, so like in my planner here, I have like activities we've been to, different pages in our math work that we've done, some reading and writing activities, if we've done art or science, field trips, socialization, and I don't do this ahead of time necessarily. I like to do it actually as we're kind of going through, just so that if anything ever happened, if we're ever investigated, I actually have a record of what we studied for the year, and usually that will kind of solve everything. So again, if you like this planner, it is available as a PDF download on our website. I will put a link below. Having a planner and having some kind of record of what your kids have learned, always a great idea. Letter of intent or letter of acknowledgement if needed. And those are basically the only things that you kind of really need to do in Ontario. You don't even really need to keep records, legally speaking, but it's just one of those things where it covers your butt a little bit, just in case. So that's all I have for today. I hope that you really enjoy this video. If you are just new to homeschooling and you're looking for more ideas, tips, or tricks, or curious about how to get started, you can find this on our website as well. This is our book on how to start homeschooling when you have no idea where to start. It is available on Amazon. as an ebook or as an actual copy like this. So we will put that link below as well. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing, and make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We post stuff there daily, and it's a great place to chat with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us there. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next week.